and YouTube. We're live. It's always fun to have that little delay. Robert J. Conley here. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm trained in accounting. I had a 20-year successful 20-year commercial real estate career. I am an expert on personality types and natural abilities. And my conversation today is my bedrock rule for leaders. So by my definition, leaders are intuitive. Intuition is what differentiates leaders from managers. A leader is able to keep people moving forward and to identify a mission based on intuition, which is knowing something without concrete proof. And so this conversation, I oftentimes will say intuitive leaders, but that's actually by my definition redundant. So at any rate, I've now beaten that to death. So this conversation, though, is a challenge that leaders face. I'm going to start with 3 rules. There's the golden rule, the platinum rule, and the bedrock rule. So the golden rule is do unto others what you would have done unto you. And that sounds like a reasonable thing. However, when you get down to it, it's really kind of like a minimum. It's a minimum behavior. Don't treat anybody worse than you would treat anybody else. And I'm not disparaging that rule. It's a great rule. But in the current state of understanding how different people are, it's incomplete. So one of my mentors came up with the platinum rule. And the platinum rule is treat others as they would like to be treated. And, one of the simplest ways to illustrate that is if you have an extrovert and an introvert, the extrovert should treat the introvert as the introvert would like to be treated, like lower your voice, speak slower, adjust what you can to accommodate that other person. It's a super simplified version of it. But anyway, the platinum rule is about understanding individual differences, being respectful of them, and treating that person accordingly. Now, my bedrock rule, I offer a program that I call Bedrock Leadership. And so my bedrock rule is that you always treat others as if they are capable of so much more. Great leaders always treat their subordinates as if they are capable of so much more. Now, here is an important distinction. That mindset can come from a place of belief, or it can come from a place of disdain. And when it comes from a place of belief, there is the possibility for growth, and there's the possibility for greatness. And when it comes from a place of disdain, it shuts down. It is a creativity killing place for a leader to come from, and not in the least bit productive. So when a leader who comes from belief walks into the room, his subordinates should feel that belief, and they should feel a little bit of a jolt of like, oh, I can do better in this, in this positive way. This type of leadership, this belief, causes people to want to do better. And by the same token, the disdainful leader might see increases in productivity, might see what he or she perceives as effectiveness, but what they probably don't realize is that they're killing morale, they're killing creativity, and it's a dead end road to go down. So going back to, so this is something that intuitives, and by the way, not every intuitive person is a leader. But by my definition, every true leader is intuitive. So one of the things that intuitives as a group are susceptible to all people are susceptible to this. Don't you love it when I do all this backtracking? I don't. But the conversation is about depression and anger. So the person who comes from belief in the capacity of others to do better is going to be susceptible to depression, more likely than anger. And that depression comes from the fact that, reality rarely lives up into that lives up to that intuitive vision that that person's intuition serves up. So there's depression, and then anger will come from the leader who comes from disdain will manifest anger. There will be contempt for the inability of these, incompetent people to execute my vision. And the most important takeaway for a leader is to build the self-awareness. Build the self-awareness that if you're in a state of anger or a state of depression, your effectiveness is evaporating. And I would submit that there is a higher awareness that depression will do that. And at times, anger will be rewarded, but anger is a short-term boost that might give the illusion of it being beneficial, but it's not. It kills morale. And so, the leader coming from a genuine belief that depression or that letdown will turn inward and manifest itself as depression. And it's an accusation of my inaccurate intuition, when in fact the leader needs to just get in touch with his or her own shortcomings and identify it's not necessarily their intuition might be wrong, but there also are probably some other things going on. For example, the leader is not a good manager, and that there are management issues or whatever. But the important thing is to go, okay, I'm depressed. I need to identify my resources to remove myself, because as soon as I feel that, I've lost my effectiveness. And the same with the anger manager. And to be honest, it's a little bit harder to get the person who comes from disdain and manifests anger. It's a little bit harder to get them to oftentimes to get help, because they kind of have this disdain for pretty much all of humanity. broad brush alert. But at any rate, so the first step in dealing with this is building self-awareness and realizing that you've surrendered your power and you need to do something about it. And the second thing is to realize that you can't fix it yourself. Overwhelmingly, you cannot fix it yourself. And so you need a coach, a mentor, a sounding board. Plenty of people go to psychotherapy, and fortunately, the stigma of that is a fraction of what it used to be in the old days. But if you are an intuitive person in general, and more specifically a leader, if you're not engaging in those kinds of conversations with others, you're going to start chipping away at your own effectiveness. And ironically, when I go into this topic, a lot of times when I'm working with someone, I've just spent time talking about how important silence is. So I'm not contradicting myself, because part of our brains need silence and part of our brains need extroversion and need conversation. And so part of being effective as a human being is constantly monitoring, okay, how much am I extroverting? How much am I introverting? Am I getting my silent time? And am I getting my sounding board time? And am I managing this? And so, the main thing to take away from this is the awareness, first of all, that there's the anger issue, there's a depression issue. Number two, I'm losing my effectiveness if I'm in either one of those states. I need to constantly be scanning for that feedback, for that awareness. And if I find myself in those places, I'm probably not equipped to fix it just by myself, and I need to engage others in order to regain my footing and to become once again an effective leader. That's what I've got today, and I hope it was helpful, and I will see you next time. Take care.